My father, for the sake of family gain, forcibly made Seraphina and me swallow the Shifter Elixir. Seraphina transformed into a soft, gentle white rabbit, a creature known for its fertility. I, however, became something far different, a siren, born of allure and danger. After the transformation, my strong-willed sister was sent to the royal court, turned into a tool for the king's lineage. But she never learned the art of submission, and her defiance cost her life before she could give birth. As for me, quiet and frail, I was thrown into the city's most corrupt corners, used for others' amusement until my final breath was stolen. And then I opened my eyes again. We were back. Back to that day, the day the elixir awaited us. Seraphina's eyes met mine. There was no need for words. The same thought burned between us. Change it. I nodded. This time, it would be different. This time, we would take control of our fate. Father summoned us once again, his expression unreadable as he laid 2 glowing pills before us. For the family's glory, he said coldly. Do not blame me. Blame your weakness. Take them, and bring honor to our name. Every generation, he chose daughters with rare constitutions to serve as the family's offerings. On their coming-of-age day, they would drink the sacred medicine and be remade into beasts, gifts for the royal bloodline. The king, desperate for heirs, sought women of supernatural fertility. A rabbit girl could easily secure the family's future. In our past lives, we resisted. We suffered for it. Seraphina became the rabbit girl, and I became the siren. Both paths ended in tragedy. Father never understood us. Seraphina's pride made her unfit to play the submissive consort. My shyness made me unsuited for the seductive role forced upon me. This time, without hesitation, we exchanged the pills. I took hers and she took mine. When the elixir melted on our tongues, searing pain spread through every nerve. It felt as if our very souls were burning. Then, 2 lights flared across the room, one green, one white. Seraphina's figure shifted, graceful and commanding, while I felt 2 soft airs emerge atop my head. We had done it. Our fates were rewritten. After sharing the memories of our former lives, Seraphina and I parted ways once more. She chose to enter the Red District, this time on her own terms. And I stepped into the royal carriage, heading for the palace. The king's curiosity about my new form quickly grew into fascination. He treated me with unusual kindness, always summoning me to his side. Each day, I prepared myself with care, calm, deliberate and watchful. I would no longer be a pawn. In this life, I would master the game that once destroyed us. And when the time came, the crown itself would bow to the daughters it once condemned. King Alaric, approaching 40, had only one acknowledged heir, Prince Kale, the son of a former concubine who had been taken in by Queen Isabella. Hungry for legitimate successors, the king welcomed any promise of more children, and when my sister's pregnancy was confirmed, she was lavished with favors and praise. But praise in the palace was a mask. Queen Isabella and the noblewoman Eleanor treated Seraphina like a rival, smiling as they drew closer, scheming all the while. The tonics the queen sent, the ornate parcels Eleanor presented, all hid poison beneath pretty surfaces. No matter how fertile Seraphina's body proved, she could not withstand the steady, secreted cruelty, and she died before her child could be born, the light of that life snuffed out along with hers. I, however, was not my sister. When I arrived at the palace, I had a different plan. My first goal was simple, pragmatic, and cold. I needed the king's favor. That night, when the king summoned me, his desire was blunt and impatient, but I kept my composure. A maid, Maeve, glided into the doorway, soft-voiced and trembling, her presence more conspicuous than it should have been. In the palace, maids were appointed by the lady of the chambers, never inserted like this, and I felt the chill of recognition, a trap set in silk. Maeve was a planted watcher, sent by Vivian, one of Alaric's favored consorts, to undermine me. In my past life, she had stepped between my sister and the king, and then taunted my sister openly for being half an animal. This time, I would turn the stage. I let distress show. I let my voice break, and I bowed my head like a frightened rabbit. King Alaric, Maeve has been cruel to me. She called me a country bumpkin. She said I was unfit to serve you. My plea sounded small, helpless, and perfectly believable. Maeve protested, panic bright in her eyes. She stammered that she was innocent, that she had only been concerned, but the king's temper snapped. In the corridor, the guards moved quick and severe, and Maeve was dragged away to face the palace's harsh justice. She never returned to my chambers. Curling back against the king, I hid any triumph with a fragile smile. In the end, his attention swung fully toward me. Gifts, jewels, wealth followed, and the others in the household treated me with a new, wary respect. The maids who had once jeered at my sister fell silent, and the only one I kept close was Willow, the quiet, steadfast hand I remembered from before, the single soul who had not betrayed us. For 7 nights, the king's obsession seemed complete. He spent his hours in my company, and I let it be known I required fewer attendants, sending the rest to the servants' quarters. Their resentment flickered, but they dared not speak. I knew whispers traveled, that spies reported back to jealous hands. I felt it in the empty looks of the household, in the absent faces at breakfast. The pregnancy I now carried, in my people's quick cycles, would advance swiftly, and I let the idea of a child become a weapon. I would give them a gift they could never forget, one shaped by patience and precision. Then, one morning, Eleanor stormed in like a gathering storm, her face a mask of fury. Her palm struck me across the cheek, the sting sharp and audible in the quiet chamber. "You brazen thing! How dare you steal the king's favor? How dare you be his chosen overnight?" Her words were venom, her whip a threat. I only smiled, steady and cool. In her rage, she betrayed herself. She showed the exact weakness I had been waiting for. The palace was a web of dangerous loyalties, but the spider could be baited, and I was learning how to bait it with care. This life, I reminded myself, was ours to rewrite. I would play the part of the gentle rabbit, and I would do it while I built something colder beneath the surface. Revenge, subtle and slow, would be the true air I carried into the court. Startled by Alice's fury, I shifted into my smaller form, the soft white rabbit everyone in the palace whispered about. I leapt back, landing against a familiar warmth, the king's arms. His hold was steady, protective. King Alaric's eyes hardened as he looked over my trembling frame. "Alice," he said, his voice cold enough to freeze the air. "What are you doing to her? She's a harmless creature, a gentle soul. Have you lost your mind?" Alice froze. Never before had the king raised his voice at her, and certainly never over another woman. She had been the palace's jewel for years, coddled and untouchable. The sting of his words made her tremble with humiliation. "My king, I was only trying to correct her," she protested, her voice breaking. "She's new to palace life, too bold for her place." I used her words as the opening I needed. I returned to my human form, the faint red mark still visible across my cheek. Tears filled my eyes as I spoke softly. "Your Majesty," she struck me and said I should never approach you again, that you belonged only to her. I was frightened. The king's expression darkened. He turned to Alice, his temper flaring. "Enough." A single motion of his hand silenced the room. Alice's cry of protest was drowned out as he ordered her confined to her chambers for 3 months and cut her allowance in half. The shock on her face was almost pitiful. "My king, please, I've been wronged," she tried again, but the words fell into silence. Moments later, Queen Guinevere arrived, poised and radiant as ever, her golden crown gleaming beneath the light. Her timing was perfect, almost too perfect. She stepped forward with a serene smile. "My king," she said gently, "you know how much your consorts adore you. Jealousy is only natural in a house filled with affection. Surely Alice meant no true harm." Then she turned to me, her eyes calm but sharp beneath her lashes. "And you, child," she said smoothly, "must learn humility. The king's favor can make one careless. Be kind, and remember, harmony in the palace is worth more than any jewel." From her sleeve, she drew a bracelet of polished silver, its surface engraved with sacred symbols. "This," she continued, "is one I pray with every night. I hope it brings you peace and reminds you of your place." I bowed and accepted it, masking my thoughts behind gratitude. The queen's kindness was nothing but theater. Her spies must have already whispered every detail of the confrontation. Her flawless appearance, her calm demeanor, everything was planned. She had come not to soothe tempers, but to remind me that no matter the king's affection, she still ruled this palace. I smiled faintly as I slipped on the bracelet. It was a gift, yes, but also a chain. The queen's soft words, sweet as honey, carried poison underneath. Her tone was tender, but every phrase she spoke planted seeds of suspicion in the king's heart. I saw the change in his eyes, a flicker of doubt, subtle but growing. It didn't matter. I had already planned for this. The queen, in all her pride, had no idea that the moment she stepped into my chambers, she had walked straight into my web. I had meant only to deal with Alice, but the queen had offered herself as a second piece on the board. 2 problems solved with 1 move. I knelt gracefully, accepting the bracelet she handed me. "Thank you, Your Majesty," I said softly, fastening it around my wrist. "I'm honored by your kindness. I'll treasure this always." Her lips curved in satisfaction, thinking she had succeeded. The king, catching her subtle glance, began to reconsider everything. After all, the queen and Alice had been at his side for years. Old loyalty dies hard. His gaze on me sharpened. "It's fortunate my queen intervened," he said coolly. "I might have been deceived otherwise." I only smiled faintly and turned the bracelet in my hand, pretending to admire it. As I rubbed the beads, a faint fragrance filled the air, delicate, yet unnaturally strong. I inhaled lightly, playing my part. "What a beautiful scent," I murmured. The queen's expression faltered. She knew that smell. Before she could speak, I gasped and stumbled. Pain twisted through me, sharp and real. A dark stain spread across the floor, crimson and undeniable. "My stomach, it hurts." The room fell silent. Everyone stared in shock, not just at the blood, but at what it meant. I had been with the king only a few times, and yet, they didn't understand. My kind did not follow human cycles. For us, a life could begin and end in less than a moon's turn. Alice recovered first, her outrage quick and loud. "You liar! You're trying to frame the queen now. No woman shows signs that quickly. This little act is pathetic." But the queen's face told another story. She knew the danger of that bracelet, the same one she had handed me herself. She knew it wasn't an accident. Her voice trembled with false calm. "Your Majesty, the palace was peaceful before this creature arrived. Ever since she came, chaos has followed. She's a beast pretending to be human. For the sake of the realm, she must be executed." The king hesitated. His anger warred with doubt, but his eyes softened as they met mine. Even if he questioned me, his desire to protect what was his ran deep. He summoned the royal physician. The old man examined me carefully, his brow furrowing. When he looked up, his voice shook. "Your Majesty, she is truly pregnant." The chamber erupted in disbelief. "Impossible!" Alice shouted. "Then she must have brought a lover's child into the palace." The king's voice cut through the noise, stunned.
"No. Her first night was with me."
I saw it with my own eyes. He turned to me, guilt written across his face. "Elara, forgive me. I should have trusted you." The physician's voice fell heavy. "But, Your Majesty, she's lost the child. The cause appears to be this." He gestured to the bracelet on my wrist. The king tore it free, the beads scattering across the floor. The physician picked one up and sniffed. His expression darkened. "This is no ordinary trinket. The beads have been soaked in musk, sealed in wax to hide the scent. Prolonged contact would harm any mother and destroy the child." The queen's knees gave way. Her face turned pale as parchment. The king's fury ignited. "You dare harm the woman carrying my child?" He kicked the bracelet aside, his voice thundering through the room. The queen trembled. "I've been framed. I swear it." The king's laughter was sharp and cruel. "Then tell me, who would dare to poison the queen's own gift?" Her eyes darted, and in desperation, she pointed to one of my maids. "It was her. Mina, she's the one. She must have tampered with the bracelet." Mina collapsed to her knees, shaking. "No, Your Majesty. I swear I—" Before she could finish, one of the queen's attendants struck her down. The sound echoed, heavy and final. The king's fury deepened. "Enough. Alice, for your insolence, 20 lashes before the court. As for you, my queen, your authority over the royal household is revoked. Pray I don't make your punishment worse." But just as he raised his hand to seal her fate, a voice broke through the heavy silence from beyond the doorway. "Father," it called. Calm, young, but filled with restrained fury. "Are you truly going to punish Mother?" The room fell still. I turned toward the entrance, and when I saw who stood there, my breath caught in my throat. A chill swept through me, colder than anything I had ever felt. My pulse faltered, because standing there, framed by the doorway, was the one person I had not planned for. And in that moment, I understood what real fear felt like. The man who entered was Crown Prince Lucian, King Theron's only son. He had been born to a minor concubine, one who had fallen out of the king's favor long ago. After her death, the boy was raised in a quiet corner of the palace, far from court politics. But fate had a cruel sense of humor. The king never fathered another child, and so Lucian was brought back, legitimized under Queen Victoria's name, and raised as her own. In my past life, I knew the kind of man he would become. Shaped by years of humiliation and neglect, his heart hardened into something twisted. Back then, he had been my tormentor, his cruelty hidden behind royal charm. But now, standing before me, I noticed something unsettling. His complexion was ashen, his presence weak, and a faint, sickly green glow surrounded him, the unmistakable mark of a lingering curse. My sister's plan was clearly taking effect. The king's harsh expression softened. No matter how he felt toward Lucian, the boy remained his only son and heir. "Lucian," the king said, "for your sake, I'll pardon your mother this once. She'll still have her role to play when you are officially named Crown Prince next month." Lucian's eyes brightened with joy as he knelt in gratitude.
"Thank you, father."
But a word of caution. The beast folk are not like us. They are unpredictable. It may be unwise to place too much trust in them. The king gave a short nod. "I'll keep that in mind." Soon after, Rose, who had taken the fall for the queen, was dragged away and executed. In my last life, she had secretly poisoned my sister, so this outcome was poetic justice. But Lucian's gaze found me across the chamber, his lips curling into that same dangerous smile I once knew too well. My pulse quickened. In my last life, that smile had always preceded pain. If he truly rose to power, neither my sister nor I would survive long. Not this time, I vowed. Not in this life. Once I recovered, I redoubled my efforts to secure the king's favor, ensuring his visits to my chambers became more frequent. Yet, as preparations for Lucian's formal investiture began, the king grew distracted. The royal harem whispered that I had fallen from grace. They couldn't have been more wrong. Hidden beneath my silks and smiles, I carried the king's child once more. When Queen Dowager Isabella learned of my miscarriage, an event that had nearly shattered the bond between the king and Lucian, she summoned me. Her words were cold as stone, calling me useless, unworthy of divine blessing. She forced me to kneel in daily prayer, supervised by none other than Seraphina, who relished every moment of my humiliation. My sister had warned me that the Queen Dowager was merciless, her loyalty belonging only to the royal bloodline. She adored Lucian and crushed anyone who threatened his place. But I had already decided her devotion would become the very weapon I'd turn against her. I kept my head bowed in prayer while Seraphina lounged beside me, nibbling on imported fruit and whispering in mock sympathy. "You were clever once," she taunted, "but cleverness can't save you forever. You've offended everyone who matters, the queen, the crown prince, the dowager, and even me. Let's see how long you last." Her arrogance was almost laughable. She wore my gowns, my jewels, even dared to sit at my vanity as if she were already queen. The day of Lucian's investiture finally arrived. I dressed modestly, my complexion pale and fragile, a deliberate contrast to Seraphina, who sparkled beside me in stolen splendor. As we stepped into the grand hall, I lifted my chin, calm and composed. They thought I was fading, but I was only waiting for the right moment to strike. When I entered the grand hall, the atmosphere shifted instantly. Conversations hushed. Nobles who once smiled at me now turned their faces away, pretending not to see. Queen Victoria and concubine Willow sat proudly beside the king, both smirking the moment their eyes found me. To them, I was already finished, a fleeting shadow from the king's past. Then, Crown Prince Lucian appeared, radiant in gold and crimson robes. At first, his gaze swept past me without interest. But something changed. His pupils dilated, his breath quickened, and in the next heartbeat, he began striding straight toward me, his steps unsteady, almost feverish. I immediately recognized the signs. My sister's serpent magic was taking hold. Gasps echoed through the court as Lucian reached me. Before anyone could react, he seized my arm and tore at my sleeve, his movements wild and erratic. The crowd froze in horror. I instantly understood my sister's plan and played my part. Clutching my abdomen, I screamed, collapsing onto the cold marble floor. Please stop. My baby. Someone help me. Chaos erupted. The king's guards rushed forward, restraining the frenzied prince as courtiers whispered in disbelief. What's happening? Why is the crown prince behaving like that? Did she bewitch him? Those beast folk have strange powers. Their murmurs filled the air, twisting truth into poison. It was easier for them to see me as a temptress than a victim. The Queen Mother descended the dais, her cane striking the floor like thunder. Your Majesty, she barked. How long will you tolerate this creature's presence? She's brought nothing but disaster. End this farce before the ceremony is ruined. Trembling, I lifted my tear-streaked face to the king. Your Majesty, I'm carrying your child. The hall fell utterly silent. Though others doubted, the king's expression darkened with concern. He had already seen too many strange turns to dismiss me now. Summon the royal physician, he ordered. While waiting, the Queen Mother gestured toward a timid young woman standing nearby. This is Celeste, she said pointedly. Pure, well-bred and devoted. A far better companion for you than this troublesome rabbit kin. Celeste stepped forward eagerly, trying to kneel beside the king, but he gently pushed her aside, his focus never leaving me. Moments later, the physician arrived, examined me quickly, and turned pale before breaking into astonished excitement. Your Majesty, she's pregnant again. A collective gasp rippled through the hall. The king leaned forward, his voice unsteady. The child, is it safe? The physician nodded. Yes, Your Majesty. In fact, she's carrying more than one. The king froze, then broke into joyous laughter that echoed through the chamber.
Twins.
The heavens have blessed me again. When they are born, I'll make you my queen, Elara. Around us, silence reigned. Queen Victoria's painted smile cracked, and Alice's hands trembled on her lap, their jealousy barely concealed. And as I knelt there, still clutching my stomach, I hid my smile. The chaos had only just begun, and every piece was falling into place exactly as planned. The king's fury crackled through the grand hall like a storm. Only then did his gaze shift to Celeste, who had been standing in front of me, blocking his view. I looked pale and weary in my plain gown, while Celeste gleamed in gold and silk, her face adorned with jewels that sparkled under the chandeliers. The contrast enraged him. With a sharp motion, the king struck her across the face, the sound echoing through the marble chamber. Shameless traitor, look at your mistress. She's carrying my heirs, and you've spent your time dressing yourself in finery, trying to climb above your station. Mother, this is the innocent girl you praised? Elara, my loyal handmaid, stepped forward and bowed low. Her timing, as always, was flawless. Your Majesty, she said, her voice trembling with righteous indignation, Celeste deceived the Queen Mother, using her favor to torment Lady Elara. Within our palace walls, she acted as if she were the true mistress. The Queen Mother's expression hardened, her earlier affection for Celeste vanishing in an instant. My judgment was blind, she hissed. To mistreat the one carrying the future of our kingdom? Such insolence deserves death. Celeste's face drained of color. All her dreams of becoming royal consort shattered in a single breath. In my past life, this very scene had played out differently. Celeste had taken my place, rising above me, flaunting her newfound power as the Queen Mother's favorite. But not this time. This time, she was dragged away, her cries fading down the hall until silence swallowed them whole. Then the king turned his wrath toward the trembling Prince Lucien. Summon the royal physician, he ordered coldly. The physician obeyed, but the moment his fingers touched the prince's wrist, his face went ashen. Your Majesty, he said carefully, His Highness's body has been ravaged by years of excess. Though he stands before you, his strength is spent. His mind falters between reason and madness. In his current state, he is little more than a shell, driven by base desire. The king's hand slammed against the throne. Enough! I will not allow a broken, unfit man to inherit my crown. From this day forth, Lucien is disinherited and banished from court. The queen fell to her knees, her composure shattering. Your Majesty, please. He is your firstborn, my only son. Spare him. But the king's eyes were steel. In her desperation, she lashed out wildly. Lucien was ruined by those sinful women at the pleasure houses beyond the city walls. It's their corruption that destroyed him. You must punish them, not my son. Whispers rippled through the court. Everyone knew the name she dared not say aloud, the Scarlet Orchid, a place infamous for its allure and its secrets. I froze, my heart pounding. In our past life, my sister and I had been trapped there. If anyone uncovered the truth, our carefully laid plans could collapse. So I clutched my stomach, crying out in pain. "My king, please, the baby, it hurts." Instantly, all attention shifted to me. The king's face twisted with concern, calling for attendants to escort me away. Queen Mother Helena followed, her focus now entirely on preserving the unborn heirs. No one spared another thought for the Scarlet Orchid. By the time the royal guards reached the city outskirts, the famous pleasure house was already gone, engulfed in flames so fierce that the river water couldn't quench them. By dawn, nothing remained but ash. Rumors spread swiftly. Prince Lucien's name was ruined. The Scarlet Orchid's secrets were silenced forever. And as the king pondered the mystery of who started the fire, I stood quietly to the side, my expression calm. "Your Majesty," I said softly, "those who rush to accuse others often reveal their own guilt." The king's expression darkened, his eyes darting toward the queen. In an instant, his voice boomed across the hall. "Queen Seraphina, for your reckless slander and neglect, you are hereby confined to your chambers for a year. You shall not step beyond those doors without my permission." The court fell silent. The queen's face turned pale, her body trembling with fury and disbelief. And I, standing quietly at the edge of the throne room, allowed myself the faintest smile. In this life, justice was finally turning in my favor. I rested a hand on my rounded belly, speaking as though it were a casual thought. "Your Majesty, the time draws near, and I feel so alone. My sister lives in the countryside. She could come to the palace and stay with me through the birth, if that would be permitted." The king agreed without hesitation, and my heart leapt. Akasha was coming to the palace. When she arrived, I sobbed with relief. Kasha swept me into a warm embrace, soothing my back with steady hands. "My foolish sister, stop crying," she murmured, smiling. "I'm fine. You are the one who needs care, so dry those tears." Once I calmed, Kasha told me what had happened while she was away. The dark art she had practiced in our last life had grown stronger in this one, and in her new form as a siren, her power had deepened. Men who sought her company at the Scarlet Orchid found themselves drained, their vigor stolen to feed her craft. Those visits became offerings for her strength, and each encounter left another man hollowed out. She revealed that she had already intervened in Prince Julian's fate. The memory of what he had done to us fueled her rage. She had marked him with an enchantment, and now he writhed in torment in the palace dungeon. When we went to see him, his eyes flickered with recognition, then with pleading. Kasha hissed that he had no right to the rewards of life, since he had hurt what mattered most to us. In a cold moment, she handed me a dagger and told me to finish what was needed. I obeyed, a blade pressed to a shoulder that had once shown me scorn. It was swift, brutal, and final. When it was over, we left the dungeon and returned to the quiet of my chambers. But there, a strange scent curled in the air, sharp and cloying. My stomach tightened, and a dampness betrayed me. Someone sprayed a labor-inducing perfume. I realized anger rising. From behind a screen, Seraphina stepped into view, triumphant and cruel. "Relax, sister," she said, grinning. "Deliver the child, and I'll take everything. I will raise your sons as my own. I will be the one who stands over the throne," laughing. Her laugh died on her lips, because what she saw next stopped her breath. Kasha, no longer hiding her power, shed the last of her disguise and revealed her true siren form. The transformation was terrifying, majestic, and undeniable. She had fed on so many nobles, taken their life force piece by piece, that now strength radiated from her like a tide. Where once she had been hidden in shadow, she now stood vast, dangerous, and more than any court had bargained for. The chamber froze, the palace air thick with a new kind of fear. The map I had drawn, the plans we had made, were shifting into motion in ways none of them had expected. Panic tore through the Queen Regent the moment Kasha revealed herself. Her legs gave way, her voice shrill as she screamed, "Help, guards, there's a monster." She tried to crawl for the door, but Seraphina had already sealed my chambers with a barrier, an invisible lock that held her fast. Fear hollowed her face, every trace of royal composure gone. I sent Lyra, my closest attendant, to fetch the king, crying out that the regent was attacking me and that I was in labor. Lyra moved with trembling urgency, though she could not help but notice something strange. Seraphina's aura was fierce, but beneath it there was a calm that steadied her. It made Lyra trust us, even as the scene around her fell apart. By the time King Theron and his retinue arrived, the impossible had happened. I had given birth to 7 sons. Seraphina stood by my side, returned now to her human guise. The Queen Regent lay beaten against the wall, clutching the poisoned vial she had intended for me, her plan exposed and useless. The king's verdict was swift, and the regent's fate was sealed. He crowned me his queen, and proclaimed my eldest son as heir. The court's mood changed with the clack of his seal. Fortune had turned on its head in a single hour. Then the king looked at Seraphina, eyes hungry with a new obsession. "Ilara," he purred, his gaze fixed. "Your sister is unlike any woman I have ever seen. Would she remain by my side?" Seraphina smiled, and in an instant she became the king's favored, a presence he could not be parted from day or night. Where some had expected me to be weakened after childbirth, Seraphina had moved in like a tide, claiming the space others coveted. Lady Isolde, furious at being outflanked, burst into our chambers, her outrage unchecked. She barely raised a hand before Seraphina's power struck back, a whip of motion that sent her crashing, blood at her lips. "You delivered yourself straight to my door," Seraphina said coldly, amusement in her voice. Isolde's cry of betrayal, "You're a siren, you'll tell the king," died as Seraphina struck again, and the woman fell, silenced. Seraphina's calm cruelty left no room for witnesses. I steadied my sister, massaging the taut muscles of her tail with gentle hands as she told me what she had taken from the king, how she had fed, and how much power she now possessed. "Only the last step remains," Seraphina said, eyes bright with something like hunger. "We choose the night." I considered it, feeling the weight of the decision, the cost of the crown, and of vengeance. The palace was hushed, the air thick with new loyalties and a fear that ran deeper than any blade. Tonight, I thought, might be the night we finish what we began. King Theron lay weakly in his bed, eyes glazed with infatuation as they lingered on Seraphina. Perhaps he would never realize how cruel he had been to her in a past life, when she had been heavily pregnant, near death, and he had merely glanced away before turning in disgust. "Is childbirth truly so repulsive?" he had sneered. "She's nothing more than a disposable wench. Don't bother saving her. Just let her suffocate." Seraphina's hand swiftly covered his mouth and nose. His eyes widened in disbelief, and moments later, he passed away, leaving the throne vacant. Prince Arthur ascended to the throne, and my sister and I became the new queen mothers, wielding immense influence over the kingdom. As soon as our father, Lord Gareth, heard the news, he rushed to us, proudly claiming that our success was due to his nurturing guidance. Seraphina and I exchanged a look and a subtle smile. The time for lessons had come. She personally handed our father a goblet filled with a shimmering, potent elixir. He drank eagerly, oblivious to the danger, until excruciating screams filled the air. In moments, he transformed into a snarling dog. "Too eager to treat others like animals, were you?" Seraphina's voice was ice-cold. "Now you can experience it for yourself." He barked ceaselessly as she casually tossed him a bone, leaving him powerless under her command. All of Lord Gareth's scheming advisors quickly bent the knee, recognizing the overwhelming aura of Seraphina's power. The kingdom entered an age of peace and prosperity, guided by our hands. As Prince Arthur and the other princes grew into strong, capable rulers, Seraphina and I remained eternally youthful. We traveled the lands together, helping those in need, our names sung in praise across the kingdom. From the ashes of betrayal and cruelty, we had carved a world of justice, power, and unshakable legacy.